It's been hours since negotiations began, and the hostage-taker, Mendoza, is starting to lose his patience. After negotiators officially fail to reach a resolution, the Office of the Ombudsman sends a final letter to Mendoza, who is armed with an assault rifle, a handgun, and a knife, hoping it will convince him to release the hostages still trapped inside the bus. But as he reads the letter, it seems to have the exact opposite effect. Instead of calming him down, it only enrages him, pushing Mendoza further into madness, and in the next few minutes, things will spiral out of control. It's August 23, 2010, in the Philippines' Manila near Fort Santiago, at around 9 a.m. A bus driver looks out the window and sees a group of people approaching from a distance, and the driver opens the door to let them in. The driver is a man named Alberto Lubang, a tourist bus driver. The group of 20 boarding the bus are Hong Kong tourists, joined by 3 Filipino guides. As the driver waits for everyone to get on board so they can leave, he glances at the last person in line, and immediately something feels off. Before the driver can say anything, the man at the end of the line says to him, "Can I take a ride with you on the bus?" The reason Alberto is caught off guard is because this man clearly isn't a tourist. He's not wearing casual or professional clothes. He's in full police uniform, carrying an assault rifle, a handgun, and a knife. For obvious reasons, the driver humbly declines the request, but the man doesn't walk away. Instead, he steps into the bus and announces that he's taking everyone hostage. He warns the passengers to follow his instructions, starting by ordering them to close all the curtains in the bus. Everyone complies. Then, he tells the driver to head to Rizal Park to the Corino Grandstand. Remember this place? There's a bizarre parallel I just have to mention at the end. This man was 55-year-old Rolando del Rosario Mendoza. After arriving, he handcuffs the driver to the steering wheel. Police are called and quickly arrive on the scene. Among them are Colonel Orlando Yebra and Major Romeo Salvador, Mendoza's former colleagues. They're tasked with negotiating. Not long after, reporters begin swarming the area, broadcasting the standoff live on national television. Yebra and Salvador approach the bus to speak with Mendoza. To their surprise, he has only one straightforward demand, and if it's granted, he says he'll lay down his weapons and surrender willingly. After that, the negotiators pass his demand to the Office of the Ombudsman, just like Mendoza asked. Things start off pretty well, because once Mendoza is told that his demand has now reached the Ombudsman, he ends up releasing 8 hostages, 6 Hong Kong tourists and 2 Filipino guides. He then moves back farther into the bus and waits, watching the live reports of the standoff on the television inside. But suddenly, Mendoza gets upset. He realises that the media isn't just covering the event, they're portraying him as a madman who randomly took innocent tourists hostage for no real reason. That doesn't sit right with him. So, he makes a second demand. He wants a reporter brought into the bus to interview him, so he can tell his side of the story. However, deeming it too risky to send a reporter into the bus, basically like adding a possible hostage, the officers agreed they weren't going to send anyone in. Instead, they began preparing the Manila police SWAT team to subdue Mendoza when the time was right. Following an order from the president, the Special Action Force, SAF, also arrived at the scene, and their snipers began taking position. Again, all of this was televised live. Nearby, a man was also watching the situation unfold. He saw the large force preparing to take Mendoza down. He saw the snipers now in position, ready to shoot if Mendoza came into sight. That man was none other than Mendoza's own brother, Gregorio Mendoza. And then, after seeing all of this, he took his pistol, put it in his holster, and went to the scene. At 2:01 p.m, he arrived. Despite the area being closed off, he managed to sneak in. As he got closer and closer to the bus, one of the negotiators, Salvador, spotted him and immediately recognized him as Mendoza's brother. He quickly made his way to him, but as Salvador got closer, he noticed the gun in Gregorio's holster. Thinking quickly, he managed to grab the gun and take it away from him. Now, after seeing that his brother was disarmed, and the reporter still hadn't been sent into the bus for the interview, Mendoza was losing his patience. He wrote a warning on 2 pieces of paper and pasted them on the bus window. The message read, "Media now. 3 p.m. to pay deadlock." After this threat, the negotiators managed to bring in Gregorio to talk his brother down and plead with him to extend the deadline. Mendoza agreed. Around 6 p.m, a radio station managed to contact Mendoza and asked if he had any further demands to the police or the snipers. openly revealing their presence. In response, Mendoza grabbed one of the hostages and handcuffed them to the bus door, threatening that if the snipers didn't leave, he would kill the cuffed hostage. However, at around the same time, a letter containing the Ombudsman's response to Mendoza's demand finally arrived. Hoping it would convince him to release the remaining hostages, the letter was handed to the negotiators, then to Gregorio, and finally to Mendoza himself. The radio host asked him to read the letter live on air. But as Mendoza read it, it seemed to have the opposite effect. Rather than calming him down, the contents of the letter only enraged him. After almost all his demands had gone unfulfilled, from this point, things reached a fever pitch. While shouting his frustrations about the letter, Mendoza also witnessed something on the TV that would push him to do the unthinkable. His brother was now being arrested outside, as an alleged accomplice. With the reporters capturing everything on live television, Mendoza was watching it all happen inside the bus. And this is what will follow. In a fit of rage, Mendoza opened fire using his assault rifle, executing the hostages, starting with the one handcuffed at the door and continuing all the way to the rear of the bus. However, the bus driver, still handcuffed to the steering wheel, was missed. He desperately tried to free himself, and after a few seconds he managed to break loose and escape through the window, and said that all of the hostages in the bus were dead. At 7:36 p.m, a special unit was sent, but not the elite SAF Special Action Force, which was more suitable in situations like this. Instead, it was the local SWAT team. The initial plan was to break the bus windows, but that failed. The windows were stronger than expected. Then they tried the door, tying it with a rope that was then attached to a car, but as the car moved forward, the rope snapped. Next, they attempted to enter through the emergency door, but when they did, Mendoza opened fire. After all three attempts failed, the SAF finally took over and planned to lure Mendoza to the front of the bus so the snipers could get a clear shot through the door, since the curtains on the windows were down. A tear gas grenade was thrown into the back of the bus, and as the smoke filled the area and began to choke him, Mendoza fell for the bait. He gradually moved toward the front, and when he reached the door area, that's when a sniper took a shot, hitting him in the head. He died instantly, ending a standoff that had now lasted 11 hours. Emergency responders rushed to the bus expecting the worst, but miraculously, there were 8 survivors inside. Sadly, 8 others were killed. Mendoza had been a police officer for nearly 3 decades. According to reports, he was well respected and was once named one of the 10 outstanding policemen of the Philippines, having received 17 service medals during his career. However, in 2008, he was initially suspended, then later dismissed from the force after being accused of extortion, which led to administrative charges. As a result, he lost all of his retirement benefits, just 1 year before his scheduled retirement. Mendoza tried to appeal his case to the Office of the Ombudsman, but faced repeated delays. Frustrated and desperate to be heard, he hijacked a tourist bus, hoping the Office of the Ombudsman would now take his case seriously. His demand was to be reinstated into the police force, which would also restore his retirement funds. However, the response he received did not meet his expectations, ultimately leading to a tragic outcome. You know, like the story wasn't bizarre enough, there's one final detail I just have to mention here at the end. Rizal Park, also known as Luneta Park, was the very place where more than a century earlier, José Rizal, the national hero of the Philippines, was executed by colonial authorities for resisting oppression. The park was later named in his honour, Rizal Park. And now, over 100 years later, in that very same place, Mendoza, seeking what he believed was justice, ended up executing innocent people in the same exact place where the country's most honoured martyr was executed. It adds a chilling historical weight to the tragedy, especially for Filipinos who deeply revere José Rizal and what that location represents.